in the morning, struggling to figure out what to do with your hair? We've all had our share of bad hair days. Are you ready for a change? Lock it and love it with Lock and Love Salon, conveniently located at 8117 Liberty Road, Windsor Mills, Maryland. Start your lock journey today. Lock and Love's professional services and artistic designs will keep you blazing in the hottest trends while maintaining and protecting your hair. Honey, Lock and Love is an experience. Once you try Lock and Love Salon, you won't try anyone else. Lock and Love offers starter and maintenance locks, fox locks, detox, shampooing and conditioning, lock treatment, lock extension, coloring, and much more. Sorry, but Lock and Love doesn't accept walk-ins. Trivia's Inspirational Radio would like to inform you that the views, thoughts, and opinions
Hello. Welcome to The Power of Your Story. I am your host, LaQuita Parks, and I am the CEO and founder of T.R.I.V.I.A Publishing. And T.R.I.V.I.A is Pain, Progress, Victory, because I believe without pain, there is no progress, and without progress, there can be no victory. I help people take their stories from a thought to a realization. And I'm feeling really funny because you know what? Life happens. Y'all know life happens. The more you plan, the more life will show you that I got something for your plan. So I'm tickled because technology is a beast. You know what? You can't live with it, you can't live without it, but you got to learn to live with it. So anyway, we've had a few technical difficulties and it is hilarious because this is real life and I love it. So I am excited today because I have none other than the literary ambassador herself, Miss Queenie Clem. I love Miss Queenie. Listen, y'all, let me tell y'all something, okay? Miss Queenie reads like 1,000,000 books a day, right? Okay, I might be exaggerating just a little. 1,000,000 books a day. So when I asked, hey, Ellen Sutter, if I pronounce that right, when I asked Miss Queenie about being on my show, she don't have a nerve to say, I don't like to talk. I'm like, what? She's shy. I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm like, did I just see, love her. She do 2 million. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I did exaggerate. She 2 million books. Yes. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. So I am so excited to have Miss Queenie. Listen, I met Miss Queenie through a mutual friend, Dr. Velma Bagby. Y'all know her, the lady with the catch. You know, she teaching us about how not to date a fool and so on and so forth. And so I have seen every time I turn around, I see Miss Queenie, and she is so very, very supportive. And I appreciate that. She shows up and I love it. I love it. So I invited Miss Queenie here today because I want to talk about her. You know, sometimes as authors and poets and publishers and editors, we're on the other side of the story. We talk about everybody's story. We read everybody's books. We talk about their stories. And sometimes our stories get kind of lost in translation or lost in transition. So I invited the literary ambassador today because I want to talk about her story. I want to talk about what does a person have to do to read 2 million books in a day? I mean, do you sleep? You know what I'm saying? Do you sleep? And then we've never met face to face, but I'm super excited because I get to meet Miss Queenie at the Juneteenth celebration in South Carolina. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that. So, hey, Miss Queenie.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Fine.
Good, good. So tell the people a little bit about yourself. And listen, for it's 2 million people watching, so that matches. So one person for each book that you read. Okay. That's it's just 2 million. You know, our rating, our guests are low tonight. So it's just 2 million. Okay. So tell these 2 million people who you are and where you're from.
Okay, I am Miss Queenie Clem, the literary ambassador, and I was coined that name by an author, E.N. Joy, when I helped her with her Vegas book event years ago. But I live in South Carolina. I am an avid book reader and an educator.
Okay. All right. So, how long have you been reading? Have you always read? Because I have a sister who used to read, and I did too. I've always been a reader. But have you always been a reader since child?
Yes, my mom used to take me and my siblings, walk us to the county library every other Saturday, and we at that time back in the day we could get up to 10 books, and I would get 10 books. My brother would get the encyclopedia, so we had to take those books home and do a book report on those books.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's how I became a reader, and I do book reviews.
Okay. And you know what? That's been lost on a lot of people. I remember as a child, there is a library, and it's still I'm in Georgia, and so
Mhm.
is the Atlanta Public Library downtown. And this library huge. It sits on a whole block, and there are like multiple floors. And it was just like an adventure. You go to any floor. My mom was a reader. My sister's a reader. I'm a reader. And we would go to the library too. My mom would take us to the library. We got to check out books. And we used to have to say, okay, what's that book about? And this was outside of school. So do you think
Mhm.
that has been lost on our children today? Because do
Yes.
you ever hear children going to check books out of the library?
Yeah. When I do go, no, it's very few, very few. But I was taking my son up until like maybe 2 years ago. I guess when COVID happened, I just completely stopped. But I used to take
Mm-hmm.
him the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
he has a love for books. Well, both of my sons have a love for books.
I was gonna say they like to read too. That's good. That's good. You know what? I always say, with a good book, with the power to open a book and read, wherever you travel is limitless. You
Hmm.
can visit, you can go anywhere you want in your mind. And I love it. I love it. Now, what's your favorite genre to read?
My favorite genre to read is Christian fiction,
Christian
hands
fiction.
down. Hmm.
Okay, okay. Now I wonder, you've read so many books. Now I published a book for I think children are reading more than adults now. You're right. You know what? That's funny because adults are reading less. You're right. I agree with that. I agree with that. I published for a lady. She did a Christian fiction, and I wonder if you've read her book. It's called and she had she we I published two. Her name is Nicole Scott, and her book is called Father, Can You Hear Me? And The Best in Me. The first one is The Best in Me is Christian fiction, and then the follow up to that was Father, Can You Hear Me? I have to hook
Mm-mm.
her. I have to hook you guys up.
But I'm gonna
I
write
have
their
to hook you
name
guys
down.
up. Yeah, it's Father can The Best in Me is part one, and Father, Can You Hear Me is part two. Very good books, very good stories. But so
So,
what made you start? I know you were Corn, the literary ambassador, but what made you start your platforms to help market other authors?
well, I started back in at Yahoo 360, and I didn't see any readers talking about Christian fiction. So that's why I started out as Christian fiction. Now I
Mhm.
do basically every genre except thriller, horror, erotica, urban. I do a little urban fiction, but not very much.
It's funny because when people say, "Well, do you publish everything?" I had somebody call me the other day and asked, "Do you publish everything?" I said, "No, I don't. I don't do erotica and urban fiction." And she was like, "Oh," I was like, "Just I don't. I don't do those. Somebody else may, but I'm not." And so I didn't hear from her anymore. So that's probably what she but that's
Hmm.
okay. That's okay. It's just not me. I know that I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay because you have to stand for what you believe in and keep pushing that. So let me ask you, how many books to date? How many books have you read to date?
62. Oh, you talking
See,
about this year?
no, 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 no. Now I was gonna get to that now.
Well,
Not this year, but today. How many you think you've read to date?
oh Lord, I had just looked on that too. I'll say in the last 10 years about 3,000.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. And so how do you what's your method when you're starting to read? What's your method? So before I say that, before I go there, when somebody wants to no, tell us about some of your platforms first.
Okay, I have Facebook, um, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and then I have my own blog.
Okay. And so what's your method? Because I was just on your Instagram chat where we talked about my books. And so what's your process? So you do live interviews with the authors. How does that work? How does one get on your show to do that?
Okay, that's the YouTube. YouTube is I do pre-recorded video, up to an hour, and we can talk about anything related to the author, the book, and their business. Then the IG that you were on, that's what I do during the summertime when I'm off, and that's just a 15-minute trying to a teaser to give readers a teaser of the author they may have never heard before, or book they may have never heard of before, and that's on my
Hmm.
IG, and that is live.
Now you said when you off, what do you mean when you off? What do you do when you working?
I'm an educator, so I'm off for
See,
the summer.
and so you read all throughout, and you're working, you're educated, and you're reading still throughout. How you do all that?
Somebody might be listening. I can't give you my secret, but
Listen, only
now
a million people.
on I say this on my downtime at work, I do read. Anytime, any chance I get, I'm reading. I have a sprinting group who's on now, Miss Rowe and Miss Wendy. They're
Mhm,
on too right now. I started the reading sprinting group, reading writing sprinting group, and we get
mhm.
on and we can be on there all day. We sometimes we talk, sometimes we read. I think we talk more than we read now, but it's just that. But I do that. Whenever, like I said, when if any downtime, I come home. I don't have no life, so I just come home, sit down, and I read until I go to sleep. On the weekends,
Wait. That now you said you don't have no life. A girl, listen. Yeah, you listen. You got a life. You all in dated in other people's books. So what? That's too funny. So when you're reading, how do you choose what books that you read? How do you choose them? Because I know you
oh,
don't read everything. Do you? I know you don't read everything everybody's seeing. Because I know you don't. You have to be selective. So how do you
um,
choose?
most people know exactly what genres I will read. I have 4 or 5 bookshelves in my house that authors send me books all the time, and then I'm on NetGalley, and then I have 3 publishers: Pingram, Random House, and Horror Court. I think that's the name of
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
And I just
Hardcore.
yeah, them 3 send me books every month to read for the bestsellers, I guess you could say. And
Hmm.
then Disney now has a publishing company that does children books. And
Hmm.
they hit me up about a month ago. So I have like 4 publishing companies. I have NetGalley, and I have authors that call me and say I need this book read and for honest review, and I have that service also. And then I have a book club. I'm in 2 book clubs. I'm in ESP book chats, and I'm in Beyond the Pages book club. So
Okay. Listen, you don't have a life. So what so how do you do things outside of reading? And that's amazing, by the way. How do you do things? How do you have what's the balance? Hey Jackie, what's the balance? Because you know how because you're doing a phenomenal thing because there are so many readers and as a publisher it is difficult when and I like what you said they're looking for honest readers. So I like that because sometimes we get our friends to read our books, and they don't want to hurt our feelings, so they're kind of like the amen friends. So you need people who are not connected to the story to read it so they can have an open mind. And so that person is you. So how do you, hey Miss V, hey Dr. V, how do you how do you how do you have a balance in between that? Because you just said you don't have a life, but how do you have a balance?
That's all I do. If I ain't doing that, I'm also a virtual assistant to a couple of authors, so I'm doing that also. Then I have my blog. So really, like I say, now right now I have my grandchild. I'm babysitting my grandchild, but other than that, I'm here reading or doing something for an author.
Okay, but that's your life and that's your passion.
Hmm.
Because if it's not your passion, let's see, Jacqueline said, don't overlook me, Lord forbid, please speak to me. I spoke to you, Jacqueline. Don't you come over here starting no mess on the power of your story. you know um when you're reading, when you start, because I think it's absolutely fascinating. Excuse me. I think it's absolutely fascinating because I consider myself a reader, but talking to you, I'm not a reader. Talking to you, I don't even know how to read. I can't even spell because you are all over the place with so how do you decide? And I'm going to ask, I'm assuming this, you read multiple things at one time, because I know you don't just read one thing straight to and run. Okay, because I used to do that growing up, and people used to say, well, how can you focus? I do that all the time. And as a publisher, you have to. So
Yeah.
right now I'm working on 6 different stories. So I have to read 6 different stories several times, as you're going through the process. So what's your process after you read the story? Then you do the review, or do you do a some type of ritual? Okay, I've read this, and then is it the same way every time?
No. Like the honest review. If I see something, I'll highlight it. If I'm on my phone or my Kindle, I highlight it, and when I finish, I'll email the author privately and tell this. I didn't like this, but I won't put it in the review.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay.
I'll give them a 3, 5. Well, I used to give everybody a 5. I stopped it. I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. If they get a
Right.
3, they get a 3. If they get a 2, they get a 2. That's what I do now. But I usually reach out to the author first and let them know,
Mm-hmm,
okay, here's
mm-hmm,
what I found. I didn't think this could match with this. This didn't transition. This. I send an email to that author before I
mm-hmm,
write the review. Then when I write the review, I send it to the author again. I send the review to the author before it goes live to make sure we're on the same page.
mm-hmm. Okay,
Doesn't
okay.
make sense, crazy, but that's what I do.
No, it doesn't. How is that feedback? I love that honest feedback. How does the feedback go? Have you ever had some you've given feedback, it wasn't what the author wanted, and they were kind of not like happy with you?
They had got the same type of reviews, and they went back and rewrote the book.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Have you ever had anyone that was like, no, I don't agree with you, and they just kind of left the way they
Hmm.
wanted?
And they no longer want me to promote them or anything like that anymore.
And I see you're broken up about that.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was. I was. Kind of hurt
you
my
know
feelings. Well,
you know what, it's funny because as I was while you were saying that, I'm thinking about feedback and how some people, feedback is, it depends on the receiver. Because feedback, if you take it, if you're getting feedback, it's meant to help you.
hmm.
And but if you're receiving that feedback as a negative thing, then you're not going to allow it to help you. And it takes some maturity and some growth to be able to receive it. I work with people all the time. Some of them are really, really good. And I can tell the ones who are open to feedback. And that's what
Hmm.
I'll say, this person is really open to feedback. And I can also tell the ones who are not open to feedback.
Hmm.
I work really closely with my editors, and they don't know what the stories are. All they know is, okay, here's the story for editing. They don't know who the individuals are, so I keep that separate because I don't even tell them what it's about because I don't want them to take what I've said and to be, have their opinions be screwed as they're
Yeah.
doing. And I'll say this person is very, very, very open to feedback. And my editors, especially my main editor, Kimberly, she is a trip. She's a hot. I think you probably were on one of the shows. She was on there. She's like, I'm background. I don't like people. But she called me one day and she said, "Who is this? Right? Who?" Who is this? She was like, "This is a mess. This is a hot mess." And she's very honest. She's very honest. And when I coach the authors before it gets to that point, I'll say, okay, here's the feedback, here's the coaching. Now you can take this coaching and you can implement this into your story, or when it goes through the editing process, it's going to come back and highlighted in red, yellow, and green, and it's going to make your feelings be a little hurt, but it's only to help you. But then there are some who are like, yes, mark it up. I want to see it. Let me see it. And they like, okay, I understand. It makes sense. And then there are those who, you changed my story. You did this. And it's like, but no, it's not. It has to be relevant. Make it relevant. LOL, me too as well as Queenie. As Queenie. Oh no, it has to be relevant. Make it relevant. And my Kimberly's favorite words are make it make sense, make it relevant, or make it go away.
Yep.
So what's your so when you start the process, and I know you have all of the different genres, what's your method for when people send the books? How do you go through and say, okay, this is what I'm going to read first? Do you have like days when, okay, like when I used to work in accounting and I used to be paying bills, I used to say, okay, today is my newspaper day. Nothing but news. Mondays, I'm just paying newspaper invoices, because those were the beast invoices. And Tuesday, I'm paying this kind. So do you have a ritual like, okay, Monday, I'm only doing Christian fiction. Tuesday, maybe children's books. Wednesday, poetry. How do you do that?
I go by their like the release date. Whenever their release date, like I have a guy, his release date is June 17th. I'm finished with the book, but he don't want me to write a written review. He want me to do a video review,
Mm-hmm.
which is different. So I'm getting prepared for that. And then the lady just sent me her book, but both of them are nonfiction. But it's according to when the book comes out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That I
Yeah.
try to have it read in time. Like this particular guy sent the book back in April. So they gave me
Okay.
enough time to now to get it done, which I got it now. I got to just get up and get in front of a camera and do my review. The lady that I do in July, she just handed me her book 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm. So, and that was another question. So, what's the process? So, when they send it, how long do they have? How much time do you have to read the book?
I try to tell them to give me at least a month ahead. Like if they
Okay.
send me the book, like she sent me the book, I have a couple of weeks to get it complete. So that's enough time for me to get it complete by July 10th.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. I got about 12 books over here I need to send you.
But you can give them to me.
I can give them to you when I see you on Saturday.
Yeah,
Yes.
on
Yes,
Saturday.
next Saturday.
I didn't
I'm like,
realize it was next
okay,
Saturday.
I got 12 books for you to send you for you to read. So Miss Queenie, when you do your shows, your platforms, how are you what so I'm you don't know me, okay? I've seen your information. I have a book and it's not released yet, and I want some feedback, some honest feedback. So I'm going to reach out to you. um and so you read my book. What advice would you give me if you read my book and say, okay, it needs some work? What advice would you give me? Because I like the fact that you said that you talk to the author privately. You send a
Mm-hmm.
private message before you send it. It's not that you're changing your review, you're just giving them a heads up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so what kind of, and I know you do coaching. What kind of coaching would you give me if you said, okay, you know what, you're lacking a little something? Or this do you if it's a boring book, you say, okay, you know what, this book is just boring.
I have came across some of them, and like I said, I fell out with a couple of authors. But one lady I just read her book. It's a book that caters to me, my lifestyle, so I love it. But she got a lot of errors, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of
Mm-hmm.
errors, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not gonna fly. She gonna have to clean it up a little bit more because
Mm-hmm.
nobody's gonna read it. I mean, it's like on every other page there's an error.
Mm-hmm. You
But
and you know, I'm glad you brought that up because I know you probably see that a lot. I buy, everybody who knows me knows that I buy books. I'm a publisher and I publish tons and tons of books, and I have a bookshelf to my left, a bookshelf to my right. I got books behind me, books all over. I got to organize my office because I got to shift some stuff out to some other bookshelves so that I can have some moving space. But I absolutely love supporting and I like reading books. But sometimes I get books and I'm so disappointed.
hmm
I really am. I'm disappointed at the quality. Now we're all human beings, and nobody's perfect. So even the books that I publish, they may have some mistakes in it. Everybody's human, but I remember getting. I think my whole problem is I remember purchasing a book, and I purchased the book because I was listening to something, and I was working. You know how we multitask, right? And
hmm
I was working and I was listening to something and I heard this lady's story, and it was so that it stopped me in my tracks, and I went immediately to Amazon and I purchased the book. And I was so, because I could not believe. I was like, what, did I hear that right? I was just so compelled. I jumped on it and I paid maybe 25, $30 for the book, which was like a lot for a book. I was like,
Wow.
but once you stick your foot out there in the fire, you got to get some water before you can put it out. So I was like, okay. And I'm a person of my word. I like to be a person of my word. So anyway, I got the book and I started reading it, and the story itself was just like, what? To God be the glory. But it was just poorly done. And I
hmm
and I was like, I could not believe it. So I thought about it and I called, and I'm like to be honest. And so I called, and I said, hey, I got your book. And I was like, you know what, to God be the glory. You went through all of this and you're survived and you're here to tell the story. You know that there is a God. And so I said, and I asked her if she would mind if I gave her some feedback on her book.
hmm
And she said yes, and I did. And I said, I'm not saying, sometimes as a publisher, sometimes I feel like people think if you're giving them feedback on their book, you're criticizing or being overly critical, and that's not me. I'm not doing
Right.
that. And I'm not even saying it for me to redo your book, but I'm saying it so that your book will have an opportunity to do well. So I said, it was a compelling story. I said, but there were a lot of mistakes. I mean, a lot of them, and it was distracted. And I told her, I said, I cannot, I would not recommend your book. Not because of the story, because the story is compelling. I said, but Queenie, her story was so good. It could have been like a movie. I
Oh
said,
wow.
but people are gonna lose interest in it because it is so horribly done. And so I
hmm
said, whoever did it, you just need to have somebody else to read it, to proofread it, and make those corrections and republish it, because it was, now I never heard from her again, so I have no idea. I kind of got the feeling she didn't like that feedback, and but it was it, but I run into that a lot. So people are not open to feedback, but give a little bit of advice when, from an avid reader who has read 2 million books. You talking about 3,000. I 2 million. Give feedback, because you are a professional reader. So, and I tell people, as readers, we're lazy. I don't want to have to figure out what you're trying to say. I want to read the book. I want to enjoy the story. If I have to figure out what you're trying to say, and it's spinning my head, and you taking me on a roller coaster ride, and it's not on purpose, then it's just not going to do well, and I'm going to put the book down. So I think of it this way: will I purchase a sandwich or this book? Absolutely, absolutely right. Can I go to Subway, or am I going to Barnes and Noble or Amazon? Exactly. So, Queenie, what advice would you give, as a professional reader? what advice would you give to somebody maybe just starting out and they're teeter-tottering between, I'm going to write this book, but I can't afford to have somebody else to proofread it or to edit it. What advice would you give?
Well, with that scenario, I would say um, start saving because you're going to need it for that editor. And there's different types of editors that you might need. Copy editor, developmental editor. So it's first of all you need to sit back, do a budget so that can be incorporated. That editor can be incorporated.
Yes. And what other advice would you give?
Be honest and transparent about the situations. Um, mm, that's about it.
When when you say be honest and transparent, what do you mean by that?
Um, tell your story, but if you having issues or you having problems, you don't you an English teacher. A lot of people say, "Oh, I get an English teacher to edit my book." It takes more than an English teacher.
Absolutely. And I'm shaking my head. I'm shaking my head because I know people. And you can imagine how many I've come in contact with a lot of people. And one of the things, and here's the thing too, for you guys that are listening who have not written your book or who's thinking about writing a book, and you have friends who say, "Oh, you don't have to get an editor. I can read it for you." Think twice about that, because you need somebody other than you. And I have people too to say, "Oh, I'm an editor," but you cannot. I can't even, if I'm reading somebody's book, I have to have somebody else to look at it, because my brain is now telling my eyes what it wants to see, and it could be wrong. I could read the same line 3 times, and you cannot do that. Even my editors is like, "Okay, step away from it for after 4 hours, step away from it." So that's, you cannot expect,
Hmm.
I'm going to get my book, I'm going to do my book, and then it's going to be fine. Because most people what, and you see that all the time, I'm sure, they speak the way that they write. They write the way
Oh,
they speak.
right. Oh my
And you
God.
can
Yes.
talk about that. Talk about that. Y'all know it's that time of night. It's I'm having my own private summer. If this is live, y'all, I have to say it every week. I'm gonna be fine. Just don't pay attention to me. I got my cute little fan this time. Last week I had to use a cardboard paper. This time I got my little fan. I'll be cold in a minute, so don't pay me no mind. Yes, you do need an editor. Yes, you do. An editor needs 1,000 eyes, and I don't think you should be your own editor. Absolutely, Ellen. Absolutely. Talk about some of that.
Talk about.
Talk about the why that editor is so important. Share some of the things that you've seen. Give us some of the example. And yes, y'all,
Um.
Miss Queenie said you pulling it. I'm pulling it out of her. She not reading today. She talking today, y'all.
Um. You just nobody's gonna read no mess. Um. Like I had Arthur, they are poet, and I read their poetry book, and it wasn't for us. It was for his significant other. He should have wrote this particular. It was just weird, but
Mhm.
he was. It was to his wife, but he should have. It was more intimate. It wasn't for us.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think his book took off, but that's a scenario that I had came across. Um, but nobody's gonna read something that just being messy. It's just
Yeah.
messy. Nobody gonna read
Yeah.
that mess.
I like that. My I have great respect for people in books. I do. I love books. I am working with several different people, and every single one of them have their own personalities, because the books take over their personality. And as we were going through the edits, that's the writing the story. I do coaching and development, and I coach you through the first few chapters. If I've coached you through the first few chapters, take that knowledge and implement it into your story. And then, so if you don't listen, and I can tell you don't listen because it comes back and it's wordy, it has all these words, and it goes on and on and on. And so I did that. I did some coaching. The latest person who just got her edits back, she sent me a message, and this person is very open to feedback. She said from the very beginning, I've never written a book before. I've never done this before. Whatever you tell me, be real with me. And she stayed that way throughout the process. So now she's got her edits back. And she sent me, and I appreciate her. She sent me a message, and she said, I'm reading my story, and this is so my editor provides the dirty copy with
Mm-hmm.
all the strikes out, and then a clean copy so you can see what she did. And she said, I'm reading my story, and I'm on chapter, I think she said she was on chapter 10. She said, and I understand what you were saying. She said chapter 4, 5, and 6. She said, I'm going to have to change them around because they're confusing me. And if they're confusing me, I know they're going to confuse my audience. She said, but I love it. And that's the thing. And it's the feedback, because when you can take your story and you can read it like it's somebody else's story,
Mm-hmm.
then you know that you've crossed over that to that next part. And don't take it personal when somebody's trying to help you, especially when it's somebody that you've enlisted to help you write your story. Especially if it's, listen, y'all, quit giving your publisher a hard time. Stop it. Stop doing that. And quit giving the person who's doing your review a hard time. You rather it come from us than to come from the people, and the people tell the people, and next thing you know, ain't nobody want to buy your book.
Mm-hmm.
you know so it's a lot, and I understand it's a lot of work that goes into it. What do you see most? Do you see most people who are writing fiction stories who feel more so kind of way when they get a not so great review from you, or people who've written their autobiographies or their memoirs? Who do you think takes it more personally?
The one nonfiction, because it's
Yeah.
their story. It's their
It's their
story.
story. It's their
Mm-hmm.
story. It's their story. I'm working with someone now, and their book is a great book. And as it got through the editing process again, it was like, okay, this isn't relevant. And I think they heard my life wasn't relevant. It's like, no, I'm not saying your life is not relevant. It is very relevant, but how is it relevant to your story? So I'm walking down the street and somebody pulls their car over, and the next thing you know, I'm fighting in the street because somebody pulled their car over and they almost hit my car. And then I'm sitting at the table eating dinner. Huh? What happened? You were just in the street fighting because somebody hit your car, and then you at the table eating dinner. What happened in between? How is that? You got to make it make sense. And that's hard when it's when it's your story. When it's your story, make it make sense. So talk about the children's books. So I know you're like, oh, all children's books are so cute
Well, the ones I've come across have gotten 4 and 5 review, 4 and 5, a rating of 4 or 5.
because
So
they're
I've
children's
come
books.
across some really good children books. I really have. But
Okay,
it's
come on,
one
spit it out. Come on, girl, give us some juice.
author. She was typing everything. This was like, see, I've been here 4 years. So about 4 years ago, I had an author reach out to me through Facebook, and she lived right in my neighborhood. So that's how close she was. She was like, I got this book, and I want you to look over it. And she said, but it's she was a mess. But I said, well, send it to me, and I'll look over it. And I said, just download it, send it to me through email. I'll print it out, look at it, help you out, everything. She was sending one page at a time, and it was 200 pages. That was the first thing.
For a
When I
children's book?
finally noticed was a
Oh,
novel.
okay.
And
Oh,
like you were saying, you was at the restaurant, and then you end up out in the street. Hers was like they was in the kitchen at the refrigerator, and next thing I know, they all out at the food. Transition. And I mean, it was a hot mess. She was like, just give me my book back. I just went off on me. So I haven't talked to her in 4 years, but it was a hot. Wouldn't nobody touch it. First of all, people kept saying, "Don't touch it, don't touch it." We didn't touch it. It ain't right. She needed to do some things, and I looked at it. I was like, y'all are absolutely right. She went like three
Yeah.
or four people
We
okay.
don't listen. We don't
It was
listen. We don't listen.
horrible.
I've had people to tell me that, and I remember I was working with this person, and it was just every you ever work with somebody, and every time you turn around and you start having palpitations because they called you, because you know it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be something. It's always
Mm-hmm.
going to be something. And I remember talking to a friend, and they said, listen, you, LaQuita, you're not going to ever be able to do anything to please this woman. And I'm like, and me, I'm like, well, I have to try, because it's my client, and after all, I've done this for so many people, and I've never had anybody have a problem. And I'm like, I don't want a bad review. And it's like, okay, you're never going to be able to do anything to please this woman. And just as sure as Peachtree go to Buckhead, and for those of you who live in Atlanta, you know that Peachtree goes to Buckhead all day long. Okay, it can go from Buckhead to Bankhead, Alpharetta. Just get on Peachtree Street, and you'll get to where you need to be. Okay, when I tell you, she put me through the ringer,
Mm-hmm.
and I have published and written in my own books, and she put me through the absolute ringer. I said she had me second guessing my own self.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, wait, I know I've done this before. And it was just and she taught me a valuable lesson. Even the clients that come, everybody has their own motive. Everybody has their own reason for wanting to do what they do, and that's fine. And if you don't like what somebody else is doing, then take your book and go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Do it somewhere else. But yeah, I that would be that's absurd. That's piecemealing. I can't stand piecemealing. You sending me one page of 200? No.
She didn't know how to do it, and then I finally just had to go over to her house and get the book. It was a mess. It was a mess, and to this day I don't think she published it.
Probably not, because nobody's gonna deal with all that.
Mm-mm.
There are people who are a little cray cray, who might, for whatever reason, but everybody's not gonna deal with that, because like ain't nobody got time for that. You have to want to you there. I believe my whole thing is everybody has a story.
Mm-hmm.
100% of everybody living and dead has a story. And I've worked with people who they've wanted to publish their book, and they've had people from larger publishing companies say, nobody's going to read your book, nobody wants to know, da da da, and that nobody cares about your story. And that still should not stop you from getting your book published, because it's your story. And
Mm-hmm.
just because somebody at Random House or Penguin won't publish your book, that doesn't mean that that's the stopping. How many people have pitched their stories to a movie, or pitched their song and got turned down? And how many of the authors who are these huge, Stephen, Sidney Sheldon, how many of them have submitted their manuscripts, back in the day when they was doing that, submitting their manuscripts, and it got turned down until a publisher picked them up. So your story is your story, and my whole thing is leave a legacy. But no matter what, no matter why, no matter what your why is, that's what you have to determine. And so as I'm working with people to get them to the point where they get to you. So once the book is in hand, then you would be the next step. And I encourage people, if you're listening, I encourage you to reach out to Miss Queenie. She ain't got nothing else to do. Nothing. Okay. Reach out to her, send her your book. It's gonna cost you a little something, not a lot of something, because she will do it for a little.
Affordable, affordable.
It's affordable, very affordable. Our goals are not to, and I meet so many wonderful people like you, people like Jacqueline, and there are trivia. There are people, Dr. V, it's not about the money. It's because we genuinely like what we do, and we want to help people get their story out. But we also want you to have a chance to get your story out. We're considered indie authors. We're
Mm-hmm.
considered indie publishers. I'm considered an indie publisher. So when I publish your story, you can be proud of your story. I know this lady right here is proud of her story.
Mm-hmm.
It, it's a, it's a
That's on my next. That's on my TBR
Yes,
list. I read this summer.
it's a beautiful book. This man here proud of his story. He spent 21 years in prison for murder. He's proud of his story because you know what? Before he came to me, he got a publisher who took his money and didn't want to publish his book. And I published this book in 2 weeks. I told him to stop telling people that because I'm not that's not ideal. I don't want to do that. But he's proud of his story, and it's a beautiful story. So tell your story, share your story, and make sure that your story represents you. So listen, so Miss Queenie, tell these people how they can connect with you on your platform and which now see I listen, y'all better send your books because I got 13 of them. And I said 13, but I probably got about 18 of them because I got I am definitely you've seen it. I tell my people, hey, reach out to this lady so you can get some marketing for your book. Because I'm going to say this, I have to say this. It is the publisher's job to publish your book. It is not the publisher's job to promote your book unless that's a package that's offered. Okay. So when you go to a publisher, whether it's me or anybody else, always want, have in mind what's the anticipated outcome. What are you going to do with your book? What are you going to do with it when you sell your book? This is a beautiful book, Miss Queenie. It's beautiful. And I'm saying it because you see who wrote it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look through the parts. It's an affirmation. It's just a simple book of affirmations. I never marketed this book. I never marketed, I've not sold any of them, but I've given away a ton of them. And it didn't dawn on me that I need to sell it until I gave one to my cousin whose mom passed. And as she was reading the book, she said, "This is beautiful. How is it doing?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She was like, "How's it doing?" I said, I haven't sold any copies." She was like, "What?" She was like, "Why not?" I said, "Because I'm always marketing other people's books, always pushing other people." She said, "Well, don't forget about you." And so this book will be on sale at the Juneteenth event on the 17th. Okay. So stop by and meet the publisher and the author. This is one of the books. And so as you go through and you're doing your stories, think about that next step. And listen, Miss Queen is going to tell y'all how to reach her because she is amazing. And I'm not just saying that because she's sitting here on my show. I'm saying that because she has y'all just said she just got picked up by Disney. She not being a puppeteer out at Disney World. She reading books. So she just got picked up. So she is a professional. These are professional readers. She got some history under her belt. She don't have no life. That's what she said. And she's waiting for your books to give her some life. Miss Queenie, we're gonna have to get you a life, girl. So what are the different platforms you have for marketing the books?
Okay. Facebook, which is Miss Queenie Clem. Instagram, which is the Literary Ambassador. TikTok as Queenie Clem. Um, Twitter as Miss Queenie Clem, my YouTube channel, which is Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and my blog, which is www.queeniesbooktalkandreviews.com.
Okay. And so when somebody is on your platform, what do they get when they sign up with one of your packages and say, "Okay, you know what? I want you to do a book review." Tell them what do they get? What's the benefit of going with you to do some book promoting?
I am honest, I am punctual, and I am affordable.
There you go. You heard it. Honest, punctual, and affordable. Okay. I love that. I love that. Now, Miss Queenie, I've done this and then we did this before. But I'm going to do it again. We did it on the summit that I did. You were there. You were part of that. I am going to ask you to describe yourself using the letters in your first name.
I had it written down last time.
I know
So
you don't have it.
I guess Q, quaint. U, understanding. E, enthusiast. Another E is energetic, N nice, I intelligent, and E uh I don't know what another E word.
Engage.
Excellent.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Excellent.
excellent, engaging, all of those. Those are good. Those are good words. And so how can now tell me a little bit about your blog. Do you choose how does the blog work? Do you choose a certain book to write about the blog, or you have a certain theme? And how
Oh
often do you
no,
do your blog?
my packages include a book spotlight or author spotlight, book of the day, recommendation of the day, and that's what I put on my blog.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. And so one other thing, we still have about 10 minutes, Queenie Clem. You can't go. I know you're looking at the time like, okay, let me get off here because you ain't reading. You read it. You we just talking up. You like, okay, she got me talking, y'all. I got a book waiting. I hear it calling my name. So, Miss Miss Queenie, tell us your favorite. What has been your favorite book so far? What's your favorite book? One that you may have read more than once.
Um, it will have to be where the heart is.
And who's the author of that book?
I can't tell you. It's been so many years ago, but every time it comes on TV, I'm watching it because it's a
Okay,
music
okay,
person
okay.
also. So normally when it comes on, everybody I'm like, "You're not watching it?" Oh yeah, I'm watching it. But it was
Yeah.
where the heart is.
Okay, I love that. My favorite author, and it's hard for me now because I love that I know so many authors personally. Because 10 years ago I didn't know the books that I read. I didn't know the authors at all. So I'm on television or but now I know the books and I like it. And I typically read the books for people that I know. So if people that I know I'm purchasing the book. So I have a personal relationship. So it feels like okay, I know their story. So, when you're seeing somebody acting a fool, you're like, okay, that's why they acting a fool because they went through this, that, and the third. So you kind of know. But my favorite author from growing up, from a young woman, was Wally Lamb. And my favorite book that he wrote, and I've read all except for maybe the latest two that he's written, or maybe the latest three. And it's my favorite one that he wrote was called She's Come Undone. And I love every time. And so what I would do is I would read it and pass it along to my daughter, and she would read it. All right, and I'm a thrifter. So I would go when I go to the thrift store, no matter what thrift store, I'm going straight to the books and I'm looking for certain things. And I buy books from the thrift store because they steal books. And I love that. My favorite genre is I like Christian fiction, but I love reading people's stories. And because you kind of get a sense of the why behind their stories. Sometimes when you read it, you kind of figure, is this real? Have you read books that you had to look at the book and question because it was either so crazy that this couldn't be real? Have you read books like that?
Nonfiction.
No. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. Nonfiction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I have, and I normally I'll stop and see. Go well. Sometimes if uh, I don't know the author, I'll research the author first. Then
Hmm.
that gives
Hmm.
me some kind of notion of what this book is going to be about, what type of personality they're going to have.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I've done that. I've been working with authors that I've published, and in the process of going through, I one young lady, I ended up calling her, and I think I had her on my show a couple months ago, but it was just so horrible. I called her and I was like, "This happened? Did this happen?" Because I'd never seen that amount of abuse or that deep. I mean, abuse is abuse, but I've never seen that before. Um, and I asked her, "Is this real?" And she said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay, if it was this hard for me to read, I know that it was hard for you to write."
Mm-hmm.
But as they come out, and there's a message to some of my listeners. It's there. Our stories can be difficult. My story is difficult. Our stories can be difficult, but when you get it out, get it out, put it on the pages if you have to. When those stories are difficult, then you have to know that you don't have to put that stuff back in. Hey, Dr. Monica Jackson. Good evening, beautiful ladies. Thank you for reading and promoting my book. You know what I'm
You're
saying?
welcome.
See,
You're welcome.
see, Miss Queenie Clem all over the place. Okay, all over the place. So when you're telling your story, when you get it out, you don't have to put it back inside of you. My new book is definitely difficult, but once I'm done, it's going to be mind blowing. It will be mind blowing. And you know what? And that's the thing. Once we unpack, we don't have to pack stuff back up because it's
Mm-hmm.
more room out in the atmosphere than it is inside of us. So get it out and let it go because it's not going to bounce on somebody else. Some people think, well, if I say this, it's going to bounce on somebody else. It's not. It's just going to go out into the atmosphere and it don't come back to you unless you call it back. As my sister would say, did I call for you? I did not call for you. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So what's next on the page for you, Miss Queenie? What you reading now?
Oh Lord. I'm reading the Ark, which is oh God, the Wife app, and then I'm starting my book club read, The Worst Best Man.
The worst best man. Okay. Okay. And so what's going on with you? You looking forward to Juneteenth? Now,
Oh
are you
yeah.
is that close to where you live?
Well, yeah, it's like a 30-minute drive.
Mm, okay, you
Hmm.
right around the corner, right? Okay.
Hmm.
Well, it's about almost a 3-hour drive for me, but that's okay. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. We're talking about Juneteenth on June 17th next Saturday. So if you are in the Fountain Inn, South Carolina area, come on out. There'll be, I mean, many, 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 many vendors there. Miss Queenie Clem will be there. Come out and meet her. Stop by her table. I will be there. You'll get to meet the publisher, P.R.I.V.A Publishing. Experience some of the things we have on our table. We'll have some oils because I believe in these essential oils because I suffer through pain every day, and so I make these oils and they are wonderful. And I'm so excited because last night, a good friend of mine, I saw her a couple months ago, and she was talking about her dad. And so I had a broller in my purse, and I said, to let him try this. It won't take the pain away, but it'll help some. It may help some. And she
Hmm.
called me last night after Bible study, and she was like, her dad called her, and he was in so much pain. And he said, "Can you call that lady and see if you can get one of those rollers for me?" And she called me, and I went and I had one in my purse because always be ready. And I
Hmm.
dropped one off for her dad, and it just made me feel so good because we got to find ways because there's always this medicine, medicine, medicine. So we have to find ways to work. What Miss Dr. Monica said, how many books do you plan to read by the end of the year, Queenie? She said
I
two.
think
She's up
at
to 2 million, Dr.
125.
Jackson.
I think I got it at 125.
125. All right.
I got
Well,
it.
all right. Well, Queenie, it has been a pleasure. And I know you're not a talker. And thank you so much for coming on to talk
You're
about what you
welcome.
do.
You're welcome.
I think it is absolutely amazing. And I appreciate you. You're doing some promoting of my book, and I got to get with you of some more of them, and we'll talk more in South Carolina. But I tell you, Jacqueline said those rollers work. Yes, they do. I live by them. It has been such a pleasure having you here.
Hmm.
And let's see. Oh, she answered that question. And so, if you're interested in your book being promoted, you need a review, an honest review. Hook
Hmm.
up with Miss Queenie Clem. She's available. She's on Facebook. She's on Instagram, all things social media. Send her a message. You can send her a chat and she can hook you up. She has a lot of opportunities to promote your book. So don't just write your book. Think about promoting it because there's somebody waiting on the other end of your story so they can get healing from their story. So if there's anything I can do to help you take your story from a thought to a realization, no matter where you are in your story writing journey, reach out to us at P.R.I.V.A publishing.com, PAPROVI publishing.com. And we can help you no matter where you are in your journey. And listen, create your own narrative. Don't wait for somebody to write your story for you. Write your story, get it edited, publish your story, and then send it over to Queenie Clem so she can she can give you a good review. Okay. So listen, and if you want to support the power of your story, we take Cash App donations, $ AF the number 2C to keep us going. You know, it's not free. It costs money. And Miss Trivia Inspirational Radio Network does an amazing job. And we stream live, y'all, on Roku Television and all of those places. Also, Miss Jacqueline Cox, her show, she shows on Sundays. Y'all listen, Linda. Okay. Listen, Linda. And then we have my girl Chanel saying yes to yourself unapologetically. And there are so many others. Listen, if you want something every day, you got something. Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday on Trivia's Inspirational Radio. So listen, guys, thank you so much. Until next time, it has been a plump, pleasing pleasure. Better than a triple-decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Y'all be good. See y'all next time. Same bat time, same bat station. All right.